we're on to track number 3. Now, I will just shout it out there. This is one of my personal favourites. I have to say, obviously, I love all the songs on the album. However, I do have a big soft spot for this. And probably one other one, but we'll get to that one later.
Yeah.
So, Dust, tell me the story.
Oh, where do we start? Well, Dust isn't really my story to tell. So why don't you kick us off?
Yeah.
With Dust, where Dust came from.
Well, for it's I guess it's our story. It's our story, but it's more me and then you on the peripherals and creating something from that story. But fundamentally it was in 2022 after really tough little while and just lots of factors to do with well-being and neglecting my own spiritual formation and struggling in church and reading a lot and probably reading some stuff that wasn't great to do with this kind of topic. I actually just had a bit of a crisis of faith, didn't I? After 25 years of it being the centre of my life, there was sort of, by the middle of 2022, I remember that moment where I think we were in the car from holiday or church or somewhere, and finally having the guts to say to you, I'm not enjoying church at the moment. I'm not even sure if I'm a Christian anymore. Like, it had gone that far and I hadn't really communicated it with you, and it was a really rubbish time.
I remember that moment.
Yeah.
We were at church.
Was it?
And we left halfway through.
Yeah.
Because, as you said, your well-being had already started to deteriorate. And we left halfway through and we walked in the rain to the car.
Was it raining? How dramatic.
I know. Melancholy.
Wow.
And we walked to the car and we got in the car and you said, I don't think I'm a Christian. I don't think I could call myself a Christian right now.
Yeah.
And I remember the moment quite distinctly.
Yeah. And by that, I mean, I'd got to the point over sort of maybe 6 months, probably a much longer journey in retrospect, but sort of for the whole of 2022, let's just say, where I didn't believe in God anymore. It's like a puzzle piece had just been taken out of the picture and suddenly it was all distorted, falling apart, didn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
And it was pretty traumatic for us, wasn't it? And I mean, like I said, there were other factors, and so there was a lot going on at that time, but that's fundamentally, and it meant that I wasn't engaging with my Bible at all. I was going to church because I really valued our marriage, and actually we'd seen marriages not work when people had lost faith or things like that, and actually I was like, well, I can lose God, but I'm not losing Steph, however people want to view that, but and so we were going to church still and I was kind of grinding it out, but I wasn't picking up my Bible. And then this kind of, little did I know, Steph tells me sort of a year later, sort of as this is all coming together, that my Bible was gathering dust. You were doing what?
I was dusting it.
How often?
Most days.
Yeah, so I would have a stack of books, normally like a fiction and non-fiction, and my Bible. That's sort of my book pile that at that time was by my bed or under my bed chair, and the Bible was at the bottom, unused, gathering dust, and you'd go over when I wasn't there and just be like, I'm gonna pray over this and dust it and wait, basically. And obviously since then a lot has happened, a lot has changed, and we've talked about it. I'm now in a much better place, and both mentally and spiritually, and and we were able to talk about it, and you have kind of taken some of the things I said and some of my experiences to craft this song. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I guess that's where the first line of the song comes from, when my faith is gathering dust. And that is literally what I was witnessing happening to Ash, where his Bible was underneath the chair by his bed. gathering dust, and I would dust it in prayer that Ash would come back to faith. And that's where the song came from. And I remember sitting down to start writing Dust, having this concept of faith, and starting to write it had this line, first line, when my faith is gathering dust. And actually the rest of the song, as Ash said, is you are a co-writer on the song. It's what Ash has said to me. And every part of the song I checked with Ash of like, do you agree with this from your perspective of where you sat with all of these things. And speaking of co-writers, I actually put a bit of the song on my Instagram when I first wrote it, and it seemed to really resonate with people. And one friend in particular called Becky, she messaged me I think in the moment that I released it, saying this is what I needed. And I got to a point with writing the song where I didn't have a third or fourth verse. So I had the verse before the first chorus, but didn't have any verses after the chorus, and didn't have the bridge. And Becky and I co-wrote the rest of the song together, and it was amazing to bring in someone else's perspective who was going through something similar to what Ash was going through. And also I often find with co-writing that it helps me to be disciplined about finishing a song, because otherwise I can write and then not actually finish anything. So inviting Becky in was like the best decision with the song, because she helped me shape what would become the final piece. And I think lyrically, looking at the song, you'll be able to hear, hopefully, the intricacies of what is talked about in the song. And I particularly want to talk about the bridge, which I can't sing without crying. I'm an emotional person, I shall tell you. So I do cry when I kill a spider, but I don't know where that came from. I've thought of trying to think of an example that no one else really would probably cry at. Anyway, but I am an emotional person. But there's something about the bridge of Dust that just brings up, I think, the emotion of that season of our lives over the last few years. And the lyrics are centered around this commitment of Ash's to keep going to church. And that is what the bridge is about, is I'm going to keep showing up. And I think that was where, in a real moment of confusion for you, I saw courage to keep going and be in the spaces that you felt so out of place in, but knew that you needed to be in those spaces in order to keep going, to get to the point that you are now. And that's not to say that church was the perfect place for that, and there was a lot of stuff going on for us with church anyway, but you kept showing up to worship with your friends and to worship, like to have your friends worshipping around you.
And I'd sit there looking extremely grumpy and didn't want to be there.
Yeah. But you showed up, and it was very inspiring to watch.
Thanks.
Yeah.